Hello and welcome to Clamp, the weekly podcast where we discuss all things related to creating, living, and making projects. I'm Grant Alexander and I'll be your host tonight. Joining me as always is Adam Mackey and Morley Kurt, and today we have a special guest joining as well, the one and only Clamp champ, Bob Clagett. Welcome, Bob.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Thanks. If there's anyone listening who's never heard of you before, I'd really appreciate if you could give them a little, elevator pitch on who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm just a dude that makes stuff in his basement and then puts it on the internet. That's pretty much it.
Perfect. All right. Do you also happen to have a YouTube channel or the name of it?
Yeah, I forgot about that part. I do make videos about those things that I make and put them on the channel called I Like to Make Stuff. And I've been making content, like kind of how-to building content for a long time now. Probably 9 years, 8 years, something like that. Long time.
At least that, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. I wanted to have you on this week because I was listening to the back catalog of No Instructions, one of your many podcasts that you do, along with Making It and Brain Pick?
Yeah, Brain Pick.
Brain Pick. That one you don't do as much, and my camera's gone again. But don't worry about the camera. Just cut that part out. So I was listening to an old episode of No Instructions, and you were talking with Josh Price, and he was mentioning joining the team felt like joining a startup. And that got me thinking about how, what's it like having a startup company and whether or not you think I Like to Make Stuff is one. And, just kind of talking about that. And then later we'll talk about, because you've said it's been 8 or 9 years, talking about maybe how you've tried to keep the passion alive in the I Like to Make Stuff startup.
Sure. Well, the startup thing is really interesting because I have worked at startups. So when I got out of school, I started a company with a friend of mine, and we're like a design studio, and we did application development and websites and intranets and all this stuff. And that was in 99. So that was right around the, like tech startups are everywhere, and it was very easy to get going and get spun up really quickly. And so I did that. And then eventually that grew to a point, I think we had like 14 employees. We sold that to an agency, and then I went to work for a larger agency which didn't have that feel. And then eventually got a job with another kind of startup. But then the day I started, they got bought by Dell. So that became a not startup very quickly. But the thing that's interesting about the startup idea is I've intentionally not made I Like to Make Stuff a startup, not given it that culture that comes with it. And I think when Josh said that, it's because Josh didn't have the perspective of what that would actually be like. So from his perspective of working for like big aerospace, really big, defense contractor kind of companies, yes, it feels small, it feels agile. But from my perspective, like we don't work that much. And we have families and we have lives, and we don't dump 120% of ourselves into this thing.
When you started, and you were by yourself, you were obviously working full-time in a full-time job and trying to grow your channel. Did it feel more like a startup then? It
did. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But I decided really early on that was not going to be a long-term thing. Like this, I'm not going to set the tone for this is how the rest of my life is going to be. And then when I started looking at getting help, getting other people to even part-time help with editing and stuff, I did not want to require of them what I was required of at previous jobs. And so, when it was just me and I was trying to make that transition, my wife and I sat down and it was kind of like, look, I'm going to have 2 full-time jobs for a while to see if this works. And we actually put a time on it. We put it like a 9-month, I think it was 9 months. I'm going to work 2 full-time jobs for 9 months, and then it's going to stop one way or another. either the YouTube thing's going to stop because it didn't work, or the other job's going to go because it's in the way. But I knew that if I tried to just do it until it worked, then my newborn child would be completely neglected by me. My wife, who was having to deal with a newborn child, would be neglected by me for an indefinite amount of time. That's terrible. That's startup culture in my mind,
Right.
where it's just like, we're going to hammer this thing and give up our lives until it works. And there's no guarantee that it's going to work. So we put a time limit on it. And I think I made it maybe 5 months or 6 months before it was like, the job's got to go. Like, I don't need to see this thing through. I know what the deal is. And, we were both, it was really clear. And so getting rid of that double time, that was the only period where I feel like I've really pushed myself into that kind of startup culture, just give it all. And then after that, it was, of course, I have to work some nights and some weekends and do extra things here and there, and after the kids go to bed. But I really have tried to keep my work to like a 9 to 5, 9 to 6 this entire time. I have 4 kids, and like one of the things that I wanted as a young person was to have kids. And so this is where I was going. This was the point of me becoming an adult and stuff. So I was just kind of unwilling to give that up for the sake of, more subscribers or like faster growth or whatever.
For someone that has 2 kids, I have to really appreciate how you can have your shop in your house and still work 9 to 5. I have 2 kids, and like the only time I get work done is if no one's home.
Mm.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
Do you have like, how's the flow? Do they come in and out? Do they have full access to you during those times?
Yeah, they pretty much do. I mean, my 5-year-old can come in and out. He's been in a few videos with me. But my toddler, he just bangs on the door.
So this is a terrible comparison because I have no kids and I have a girlfriend in our apartment. But it has been a thing that we've learned to deal with because I am working from home. I'm trying to like work on my own business, and with both of us working from home, it can be really fun to just like pop in and like have conversations and everything else. But it's been a good amount of work for us to like build boundaries around that. And that was actually one of the original ideas behind the on air sign that I made. Like I wanted to put it outside of the second bedroom that I use as my workshop to say like, don't bother me, I'm working on stuff. But 1, it felt like a little like passive aggressive, and 2, it just like the whole kind of scope of the project sort of changed. And yeah, now it's still a thing that we work on constantly, but it's really kind of come down to like if like my door is closed, like please just knock, and I might just not be able to talk, even though in the past when we've both been home together, it's been like just freely, moving in and out of each other's lives. But building those boundaries have made things so much easier because I hate getting interrupted. And one of the things I've realized recently is that a lot of times I'm the one interrupting myself. It's like me looking at my phone or having Discord open on my computer. So it's not just like helping myself not get interrupted by another person, but just stopping myself from getting distracted from my own work.
Yeah, I think that would be a big problem if it wasn't set, if the boundaries weren't really clear. So the way it worked for us when I was getting started was I was working out of the 2-car garage there was a door in between that and the rest of the house. And the rule with the kids from when they were born was you don't come through that door. You can be brought through that door, but like there's death on the other side of that door in the form of tools, and so that afforded me the ability to go down there, go through that door, and then I was at work, and I could stay there, and just like if I had a commute somewhere, and if I hadn't had that, like in the case of like what you guys are talking about, I don't know that I would have been able to make it work.
Yeah, my son, like he won't come in the shop, but he'll open the door and talk to me or something like that. But he won't actually come in the shop, and he knows he's not allowed in there unless I'm in there.
Now, so I have a newborn, and I'm currently on parental leave for 7 months, and I thought I would have a lot more time, but it's that the boundaries were not talked about beforehand, because we also have a 4-year-old. So I was like, well, this is perfect. Like 2 kids. What's 2 kids over 1 kid? Where both parents are home. I should have time to work. But anytime I try and go out, there's like, oh, it's, someone needs to go down for a nap and the other one's crying because the Hot Wheels tracks won't go apart or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there's always like there, no matter what's happening is at the same time, the kids. So I could not imagine having 4. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, it's actually, okay, so I haven't talked about this in a long time because my kids are older now. And so I used to talk to young parents a lot. We were kind of in the same place. And they're like, I don't know how you do it with 4. Going from 1 kid to 2 kids is really, really hard because you're dumping 100% of yourself into this thing that you have to keep alive. And you care about it so much. And you're like, all the focus is there. Then you have to split that focus between the second one. And that's really, really tough. But once you split that focus, having a third one, you're like, oh, yeah, I just like throw it in the mix. That's fine. Having a fourth one, you're like, oh, yeah, it's just another, it's a little louder. Just like more noise. So that 1 to 2, I mean, and I'm not even joking, like that 1 to 2 is the hard thing. But past that, it's about the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I couldn't, like, I think about if I were having to go to work right now, like, I don't know if my wife would be able, like, I don't know what my wife would do because the amount of time that I look after one or the other or both of the kids, it's just mind-boggling to me. I don't know how single parents do it. I don't know how stay-at-home, I don't know. It's crazy. But I think it's like a lot of things, you adapt to what the conditions are in the house. And so getting back to the startup mentality, I think it sounds like you've taken a lot of the good things about startup being agility and laser focusedness, but made it so that there are boundaries on that. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said about the about the kids earlier, that's a thing for me, right? I wanted to make sure that my life is set up in a way that my work is not going to like overtake. And so the people that work with me, we actually just hired a girl named Megan who's going to come on and do marketing. She has an infant as well, or toddler, I guess. And so in talking to her recently about coming on, I was trying to get the point across that like it's as important to me that you have time with your family as it is me to have time with my family. So yes, those boundaries are absolutely necessary. There's something that I'm setting up and kind of forcing on the team. Use it how you want, but you don't need to be here past 6:00. There's no reason. And if so, then that means you just don't come in tomorrow or whatever. Right. Hours are not really that important, but if we make videos on the internet, like it can wait, and so, and that perspective honestly has been kind of there from the beginning. Like I'm not changing the world, this is cool. I love it. I'm blessed to be able to do it, but it shouldn't come before anything else. And so I don't want to build that culture in because, we're growing. I mean, we have 5 full-time now and I don't know where that's going to go or how long that's going to, continue to grow or whatever. And I don't want to set something up where it's just like this churn factory where you come in and burn out quick and then you're done. I don't want that. So I think trying over this time is trying to get focused and trying to be really productive. That's why I care so much about productivity and trying to use that time that I've allotted for work really well and really effectively. And I don't all the time, but that's the goal, So.
I'm curious, in your own startup experience, in the ones that maybe were a little more toxic, what would you say are some of those bad aspects that people should watch out for or try to avoid their own work developing into?
Well, I will say, from my personal experience, I wasn't in any toxic situations. I was the owner. I was single. I was right out of school. I could work all the time and not do anything else. And I mean, that's not toxic. It's just dumb. You just shouldn't do that. So, but I, have been around a lot of people who have been in different tech startups and stuff. And I think a lot of the problems are when people who are I'm talking purely from a coding world. That's kind of what I know. If somebody's at a junior level and they're looking for work, they're looking for experience within the thing, they get brought in to a bigger company as you can work here and get experience and then you can move up the ladder. But what's really happening is they're brought in cheaply to be worked to death and then not care about it anymore and leave, so that the people who are more senior can continue to get the benefits that they're getting and the whatever, and do have the life that they want. And so I think there's a lot of that. We don't have to pay you. It's like the intern thing, you know, like,
Yeah.
you can intern, you won't get paid, but it's good experience.
Everyone's doing it.
Yeah. So that exposure thing, and it's all the same. So that was the experience that I saw from people around me, people I knew.
Mm-hmm.
Got taken advantage of.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I can't say from my own experience that I've worked for someone else who is running a startup. I'm currently working for like a small business, which is like growing quickly. And I don't know if it's not in the tech space, so it's maybe hard to make that comparison. But I think one thing which is difficult is that a lot of people we work with are really young. I mean, I'm young, I'm 25, but a lot of people who work there are like 18 or 19 or 20. So they don't really know how to set boundaries. And it can become like strange to kind of like work in that environment at a certain extent, because we're just at like sort of different points in our lives. And, you know, you don't want to tell them like, don't have this experience. But at certain points, you also have to, like, you're like, man, like, go home. Like, you don't have to be here. It's like 7 p.m. Like this, like I had to. So then this past summer, we run a summer camp, and I was running the camp, and I kind of like sat everyone down one morning and literally did a breathing exercise with like 40 people. I was like, guys, just remember, this isn't a heist. This isn't, you know, this isn't the end of the world. We're running a camp for kids. Like, cause it was at the point where like deadlines were starting to escape us. The prep wasn't in as good of a place as we wanted it to, which I knew was going to happen, because in prepping for a tech, you know, STEAM camp, there's a lot of stuff to do and things just won't get done perfectly in, like, you know, making YouTube videos. And I hope it helped, but yeah, a lot of them, you know, they don't have the experience or the perspective on life yet to like be like, okay, it's okay if this thing isn't perfect. They get really emotionally wrapped up in it.
So I remember when I was younger than Morley, which is amazing to think that was possible. But I remember in my first like real job, I would stay late almost every day, so that I seemed like I was a super performer, because I wanted the experience, I wanted the job, I wanted to get ahead. And then one day my boss found out that's what I was doing. And she said to me, stop doing that, because you're making it seem like I can get this much work done with the amount of hours they're giving me. I work for the government, so it's, you know, it's all budgets and stuff. They don't, you know, it's not no profit motives, but she's saying, if you're working 60 hours and they're paying me for 40, I should be getting 60 hours. I want that. I want to hire another person, or I want to give you overtime for that. Right. And I went, that makes sense. Why didn't I ever think of it? Well, because I'm, you know, a 20-something-year-old who didn't have a girlfriend, didn't have a wife, didn't have kids, didn't have any other responsibility other than perhaps getting ahead in a career.
It's so nice when someone takes the time to like sit you down and explain those things that aren't obvious to you. Like, I remember I was working at an engineering firm as an internship, and we were billing hours. It was the first time I had experienced putting in the job I worked on and the time I spent on it on my timesheet, which is really like stressful and new at a young age. And I felt a little bit of pressure to underreport the amount of time that I was spending on things, because I didn't want it to look like, I mean, it's the opposite situation from you, if I'm understanding correctly. I didn't want it to make it seem like I was inefficient. So I'd be like, you know, I was there for like 50 minutes. I'll call it 45. And the guy I was working with, who wasn't very much older, he was like, no, if you work 45 minutes, put down 45 minutes, because it's not sustainable to do that over any long period of time. There are guys here who do that, and it makes it harder for the rest of us, because then it looks like everyone else isn't, you know, working as much. Obviously, there's a fine balance. You know, you don't want to start over reporting it either. But it's really stuck with me ever since he said it. It's like, no, like, I worked an hour and a half. I'm getting paid for an hour and a half of work. There's no other way.
At my work, as soon as people come out of college and are fully qualified, the first thing we drum into them is like, your time is your time. You don't have to do overtime. You go home when your time's finished. I was telling the boys, so I was 3 hours away from home today, and the train, I'm a train guard, and the train I was on got stuck, and they wanted me to take it here and there. And I said, I'm not going to be back in time to finish, which wouldn't have got me back here in time to do this. And he's like, oh, but I really need you. I said, no, that's a you problem. Like, I'm going home. I don't do overtime. I've been on the job 8 years, so I know that I can get away with it. But then people that have just taken up and just finished college, that have been out for like a month, they'll be like, yes, sir, I'll do whatever you need. Like, but it may, as we keep saying, like it makes everyone else look bad because they think, well, why can't that person do it in that amount of time, and why can't
Yeah, I will say, like, on the opposite end of that, when you are in charge or when you are heading a thing, and you're not reporting to someone else. That is absolutely all those situations that you just said. But when you're like trying to build something on your own at a young age, and you don't have a lot of requirement of you, like, as long as you're healthy about it, I think pouring yourself into the thing that you're trying to build is pretty awesome. It's amazing to have that opportunity to do that. For sure. Yeah. Because as life goes on, you don't have that same kind of opportunity without a pretty big cost. And, I see a lot of, like, at WorkbenchCon, there were a lot of people. I mean, I'm not exactly like a young guy anymore, but there are a lot of people that are pretty young that are getting into content creation and stuff. And you can tell that they are dumping a lot of themselves into it. And it's great. As long as it's not going to hurt you, as long as it's like, there's a time and a place for all this stuff. And, so I guess anybody listening, don't hear me being like, as soon as you get out of college, go to 9 to 5 and make room for all of the people in your, I'm not saying that. I just mean, like, be realistic about where you're putting, there's only so much of you. And if you burn it all, then there's not enough of you where it needs to be. So
I think as long as you understand from the get-go, it's not a sustainable thing as well. Like as you said, when you first started, I like to make stuff. You were working 2 jobs. You were working 2 full-time jobs for 6 months before you realized you had to get rid of one of them. But if you didn't do that, you would never be where you are today. And you knew from the beginning that it wasn't sustainable to do that forever. You had to eventually get rid of one of them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So understanding that it's not sustainable is definitely the big thing.
When I started my YouTube career, quotation marks around that one, my first year, I put out a video a week for a year while working full-time while I had a newborn at home.
Ooh, wow.
And so basically when they would go to, when the baby would go to bed, that was my time. So I was working till like midnight every night for a year. And after a year, I still wasn't monetized. And I went, that's not going to be sustainable, right? There wasn't a time where I went, oh, maybe I can quit this and, quit the real job and switch things up. Obviously, we won't talk about how bad my videos were at the beginning, but they weren't very good. They didn't catch the YouTube. There's no guy in the pipe wasn't even thinking about that switch. But it does talk a little bit about trying to keep the passion alive, because I've clearly, it's been 3-4 years now. I've continued to put out videos at a smaller, lower pace. And I feel like that startup mentality was me pouring everything into it. And now, how do I keep doing it now that I don't have, like, it's not new and exciting and fresh anymore? And I think on one of the latest episodes of Making It, Bob, you talked about, maker fatigue. And I think that goes along with the startup. You can't do that mentality forever. You can't keep that focus going forever, because you'll either become fatigued or you'll like burn out or whatever. Lots of different names for what could happen. So what have you been doing to try and keep, I like to make stuff, passionate?
It's tough. If I'm perfectly honest, that's a hard thing to do. And And I think it comes in waves. I mean, I'm not going to say that like I'm always like up for it all the time, because I'm not. I mean, it's just like anything where there's moments where light bulbs go off and like lightning is striking and you're just like, yeah, I got to make the thing right now and it has to work. And I'm on Amazon and I'm ordering way more stuff than I need. And it's like the firestorm is happening right now. And then there's other times where I'm just like, I just don't want to. The pace is killing me, and the whatever is the, like, who cares about thumbnails and all these? It's just like the gunk of work comes up. And so, it ebbs and flows. I mean, I think being able to pivot really quickly to something else I'm very lucky in that I've built the thing to not be super focused. I can work on R2D2, which I'm done now, but I used to be able to work on R2D2 and then I could like turn left and go make a guitar and then turn right and make a piece of furniture, or just, so if I was getting bogged down in something, I'm in the situation where I'm expected to pivot, and that's pretty great, and it has its drawbacks for sure, but it's given me the opportunity to I don't want to say burn out, but to get kind of like complacent in something or kind of done with something, and then just be able to like, let's go do something new. And same format, same tone, same intent, but the work is different. And that's been absolutely necessary for me, just for my personality type. But
you mentioned sorry, Adam, I know you wanted to say something, but just before it's lost in the shuffle, you mentioned that agility has downsides. And I'm curious what those are to you, because I don't know what you mean, because it seems like it's working very well.
Well, it is, but when you have a channel, or that's what we're talking about. So when you have a channel where you make a bunch of different types of things, every time somebody sees you for the first time, they see you through the lens of how they found you. And so they extrapolate out what you are based on what you're doing when they found you. And so the people that come to our channel through a furniture build are really disappointed the next week when I'm working on a car. And the people that come in through car stuff are really disappointed when I'm making a prop, and so on and so on and so on. So, and a lot of people like the variety. That's great too. But I think it's become more common now for us. We're kind of known for the fact that we jump around a lot. But in the first several years, I would get lots and lots of comments about like, man, I wish you'd go back to woodworking, or man, I wish you would go back to whatever. And, I mean, that's opinions. It's not like I have to be upset about that or bow to that or anything. But when you're trying to grow a dedicated group of people who are really into what you're doing, but then they get kind of pushed off, they get kind of like, this isn't really my thing every week. And a different group of people are doing that every week. It becomes a more fragmented group of people than like a really unified community of, we're all in this for a thing.
Right.
It's one of the things I heard years ago. Someone was commenting about YouTube is that we thought that they thought eventually that you would be able to subscribe to like playlists. So rather than the channel. So say for instance, like someone could subscribe to just your car videos or just the woodworking, and then they don't have to complain and be like, I subscribe for furniture, not for table tennis. All that sort of stuff. Yeah. But it's funny, like, so in our spare time, because we're full-time jobs and all that sort of stuff, it's like content creation. It's crazy to think that your spare time is the opposite. So it's like, I'm like, there's no way I would have time to rebuild a car while trying to make YouTube videos. But yeah, it's I think that's kind of like a big goal to sort of think about with that sort of stuff. But also with like the type of videos we make and that, no matter how small of a channel you are, like I'm a tiny channel, it's still a production. Like I have to not just build something, but also film everything and think of angles and all that sort of stuff, compared to not saying they don't work hard, but someone that makes like gaming videos, for instance, you've just got a screen to record and a camera pointing at your face. There's not a big production in it. It's just a lot of editing.
Yeah. I think I mean, everybody thinks that they work harder than everybody else. Like, but I think maker people, like people on YouTube who make physical things, art, whatever. If there's a physical production, like you're talking about, going alongside the video production, I think those people, and people who are doing pure education, where it requires a huge amount of research just to be able to say something in an educated way. Those are the two genres that are completely underappreciated when it comes to production. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I would totally agree with that.
And unless you do it, you don't understand it. You don't understand how much goes into it.
Yeah.
I totally agree that it's a ton of work, but I think something I found in my own process is that there are a lot of parts of it that are like totally unnecessary. And like, you mentioned like building a big project and like getting all this footage. Like, I know we've talked about it before, but like, it's so crazy, like how little of the footage you actually use once you make a video, and just getting that amount. Like, I've thought about it before. Like, it's so easy to fall into a pattern of like, no, I always film the circular saw going through the wood. I always film this part. But I've actually started like stepping back and questioning, like, how often do I ever actually show more than like 2 seconds of this?
Yeah.
And it's helped. So just like, there's parts of your process where you're banging your head against a wall, or even just like genres of content that I've realized just like aren't interesting to watch. Like sometimes I'll set my phone up to make a time lapse of a 3D print, and it's not interesting to watch as a story because it takes so long for a 3D print to finish that to actually film it in sorry.
Exactly.
Go on.
I don't mean to interrupt, but that's interesting to you. And that's the weird thing about this. Because I'm totally with you. We shoot super lean. We try to like only shoot what we're going to use. Time lapses to me are not that interesting. But I'm also not my audience. And it's so weird, like in that moment to say like, well, yeah, I'm not going to record an entire time lapse of a thing. But there are channels that are literally just time lapses of 3D prints, and they do pretty well.
I know, I totally agree. Like Dom Rico Bean, I don't know if you've seen his stuff, like amazing cinematography when it comes to filming time lapses of CNC and 3D printing. And it's something I want to get better at, but I think in this specific example, it's like short time lapses, like 20 minutes or so, but in the scale of like a 5-hour print, nothing much changes. And I actually find it fascinating, like trying to make engaging time lapses and figuring out like, okay, like you need some sort of static object, you need something moving through it.
You need
but I've also filmed a lot of, watching it. It's always fun. I filmed a lot of stuff that like, it just isn't interesting to watch. And it's amazing. You can like spend 3 hours getting what you think is cool and it going in the trash at the end of it. And how much work is it to get that shot?
There's a TikTok channel that literally just live streams their 3D printer and people watch it. So
there's Twitch channels where people subscribe and give those people their Twitch subscription of 3D prints in real time.
Think about though, when you first got like for Adam, for your CNC, how much fun it was to just watch it. And there's I bet a large percentage of that audience are people who don't have a 3D printer and are just fantasizing about it. Like, look at this magical thing. Like I enjoyed woodworking videos so much more before I actually started woodworking. Once I started doing it, like the magic was gone to a certain extent. I enjoyed it for a different regard, but I used to watch Matthias Wendell videos and being like, how is this even happening? Like, this is magic.
Well, that's like me watching people with gaming videos, is I would watch them because I didn't have the time to play. So I got my fix by watching someone else play.
Yeah.
So in talking about that, it makes me think of the 12 plus hours I filmed of my lean filming of my bowler, my vintage trailer rebuild. That was my lean. I didn't do half as much as I should have, and I missed parts that needed to be in the story that weren't, all for a 12-minute video. My best performing video, but still a 12-minute video, 12 hours of filming.
And that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Anyways, that's a little off on the side there.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm curious though. You say that you try to record very lean, Bob. If you put out like a 10-minute video, how much footage do you think you would have? Like, how much do you have to get rid of?
We've probably shot 40 minutes.
Wow.
30,
Wow.
40 minutes.
That's so good.
Does that include the outtakes?
Yeah. they're
Wow.
they're all
Wow.
scattered throughout. You see a very small percentage of those. Yeah, I mean, we really try to keep it lean, and there's several reasons for that, but we try to keep it to only what is going to be useful. And so we end up talking these days, not in the past, but these days we'll talk more about, okay, I have this work to do. What's the important part? What's the stuff we've shown before? Like, we're not going to show the cutting plywood again because we've done that.
Yeah.
So like, we're going to skip over that, And so we're trying to we're big on incremental change. I'm big on incremental change. And so rather than like, now we're going to start doing videos like this, every video, we're like, well, the last one had too much of this. So we're going to make one small micro change. Nobody will notice. And then next week we're going to make another micro change, or we're going to do less of this or more of this or whatever. And then, 2 years later, the videos look very different, but you didn't see it happening. So one of those things is where to trim, where to get more, do we need more B-roll, less B-roll, that kind of thing.
Do you think having a dedicated cameraman helps with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think it's the only way to do it, but it puts two brains on something to where I can continue to focus on the thing that I'm trying to figure out, usually like in the moment, I'm like making it up as I go along or trying to follow a plan. And then he's looking at it from the perspective of the viewer, what is the important thing that I need to actually see out of this? And that's having those two separate brains. You can do it yourself, but it takes twice as long to switch modes and, stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think your incremental change is helping to keep some of the passion in I like to make stuff, because you're not switching gears so much all the time and kind of making it very difficult for either yourself or your team or your viewers to stay engaged with you along the way?
I hope so. I mean, I think so. But I also recognize that there are lots of other people who make fantastic videos who do it absolutely differently than I do. People who will just, we're going to change everything this week. And it's all, and they're experimenting or they're just picking a new direction. Either one. I mean, David Picciuto, we talk about this all the time on the other show. Like his personality is to make big changes. And so he will pick a new direction and take that direction. That's awesome. My personality is that doesn't really work for me. I would be terrified to like, we're going to start doing gaming videos this week. Like, we're switching it up. Like, nope, that's not me. So I think it helps because it's, I'm not stuck in the same thing all the time, but I'm also not trying to pick a whole new way to do everything all the time, because that would be equally as exhausting, and I don't think it would be productive. I think it would be like shotgun, just let's try a bunch of stuff and it probably won't work and we won't know why. But now I'm able to say, well, we tried a thing and this video didn't work maybe because we made this change last time. Maybe not. But, it's a little bit easier to kind of pick a change and see what the effect is. And
it's like I was saying in the pre-show, like, I think like what got me hooked onto you to begin with was like the personality. And now I think of it's probably more the style of video as well. And I guess it's more of like, it's familiar to me that I know what I'm going to get. Whereas if you changed it all the time, it probably would be hard to stick with it.
That's probably what's wrong with mine.
Well, I think when you're a small channel, that everyone as a small channel tends to change a lot to see what works for them.
Right.
Yeah.
And when I find something that works in a video that does well, I don't repeat it at all.
Yes. So
why is that?
What's the self-sabotage?
Oh,
I'm afraid of success. Success. Like if I became big on YouTube, I'd have to think about quitting a job with a pension that is very stable, that I enjoy. Right? If I stay small on YouTube, I never have to worry about that.
Or you could just decide to be successful and not quit your job and just do
Right. I could be
Less.
Peter
Bob,
Brown.
I've tried this before.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Okay,
It doesn't work
okay.
out.
I'm new
I
here,
personally
sorry.
would have to learn a lot. I personally would have to earn a lot of money from YouTube to quit my job. So I have a lot of spare time in my job in between train stations, for instance. So all my editing I do at work. I do no this is the only time my computer is open at home is when I record the podcast.
Yeah.
Other than that, everything's at work. So like for me to quit my job, I don't know. I technically get paid to edit, so why would I?
Yeah. I know they're like Peter Brown has a full-time job he loves and million plus subscribers on YouTube. He is doing it and he's doing the projects he wants to do for the fun he wants to do them. And he doesn't care if the video, I'm sure he cares if the video does well, but his goal isn't to make money on YouTube, which I get, maybe that's what I'd like, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
So don't monetize your videos.
It's also just, it's one storyline. I mean, his goal could be to make money on YouTube and continue working his current job. Like you could have both of those things. I think, our culture gets wrapped up in like certain stories, like turn your passion into a job, quit your day job. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that way.
That's
a good point.
Yeah. Every time I've tried to do that, the passion stops being the thing I enjoy doing. Like I started an airbrush business when I was in high school and I loved doing airbrushing. And then I got customers and I hated doing airbrushing.
It's actually a good point. I was always told growing up, don't make your hobby your job because it becomes less of a hobby and more of like something you have to do. So I'm interested with that, Bob, how turning your hobby into a job has changed that. Like, does it feel more of a chore than a hobby now?
That's a really big question. I could give a really, really big answer to. No. So I don't see. Trying to figure out how to say this and not sound really pretentious. I don't see making stuff for me as a hobby. I think it's something that I can't not do. And so it's a matter of, it's not like my off time where I can disconnect and then I make stuff, as a way to kind of like step away from the day. It's not that kind of a hobby. For me, that is like sitting down at night and building a Lego set with instructions in front of me because I don't have to think about it and because I can actually do it. And that's my little Zen moment or whatever that at the end of the night. So for me, making projects and making videos and stuff is the mechanism for my job. It is not the job. And this is
interesting.
I don't know if this is going to make any sense or not, but making videos for me and making projects to have videos to make about is to complete the job. The job for me personally is to convince people that are watching that they can do more than they were told they can do.
Yeah.
So we grew up with all these restraints or the lack of opportunity or whatever the thing is that told you can't, or you can only do so much or whatever. My goal is to destroy that and help you realize that you can do more. You can create the stuff that you want to see in the world. Yeah. I want to get rid of all the black boxes. I want to get rid of all the things that are in the way that just seem unknowable. That's my goal. The way I do that is through making videos about R2-D2 and like random, whatever the thing is. The thing is not the important point. So I don't know does that make sense?
Yeah,
the separation in my mind of hobby and work is maybe.
And was that mission, to convince people they can do more than they think they can, was that there from the beginning or did it develop over time?
It developed pretty quickly early on. I mean, the original intent was to I have a software job. I have a baby. I need to do something over here to stay okay. That was the original intent. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to do something over here, rather than it being selfish, I'll put it on the internet. Maybe somebody will get something out of it. That'd be cool. That was it. And then, doing it for the first year or so, I'm like, all these people, I'm making really simple stuff. And people are like, this is totally blowing my mind that this is possible, that somebody could do this in their basement. Right. And I'm like, wait a minute. People don't realize that this is totally normal. And two things there. One, it made me realize that I didn't really know how most people felt about making things, but also I realized how fortunate I had been to grow up around people who just made stuff. And I didn't know you weren't supposed to, or, I mean, it was just like, it made me realize that not everybody had that. And without trying to become like the Mr. Rogers of making stuff, I just like, I can do that. I can help people the thing that they didn't get, And so it kind of turned into it because of that, I guess.
It's very interesting.
I get really excited about this stuff when I start talking about it. Sorry, I'm not trying to be silly, but
no,
it makes a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense, and I think it really shows why you're able to keep the passion alive, because the passion isn't about the projects. It's about expanding people's minds. So that's why you can build a silverware drawer divider thingy and go, I remember you talked about it on Making It and said, like, I don't even know if I want to do this because it's too simple. And then you eventually did the project, and I watched the video and I thought it was a great video, and I still haven't finished my thing, the project I want to do based on that. But because I think it's too simple and I don't want to do a YouTube video of a copy of your project, but I probably should, because not everyone who watches me watches you.
And I wasn't the first one to do one. It's not like I came up with the silverware drawer,
I made one.
Yeah.
One of the ideas I had, which I haven't put out a video on in like 2 to 3 years, was 1 hour builds, like things that you could literally build in an hour. So those like small projects. But my three of my biggest videos, everything was done by a robot. It was and it's something that I've really realized is that people watch them because they're learning something and not just watching me build something. Because it's like how to do it in Fusion and then put it in easel and get it to cut and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think on that note, it's a good time for us to thank our Patreon supporters. I want to thank our F-Clamp level, the top level, Brent Jarvis from Clean Cut Woodworking, and Vincent Ferrari from the Because We Make podcast. Everyone,
I know that
guy. He'll probably be happy to hear that you're on here. I think I might have slipped a note telling him.
I slipped. I told him.
Oh, okay.
and then I went back and listened to the BWM episode with Bob. And you were talking about the farm, like you had just gotten the farm. And I'm like, that was 2 years ago. That's insane.
That is.
Like, it feels like it was yesterday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, for all of our Patreons, you can get access to the pre-show, and we're going to be recording an after show after this. In the pre-show, Bob let a secret out. So you need to sign up so you can get that.
And it's a good one.
Yeah. And you also get a handmade leather keychain by Morley. And you can find all that information at patreon.com/clamp.
Clampmendations. All right. So I've been working with Sarah Giffin at Viv Jewelry to do a collaboration project, which is a lot of fun. We finished up the project itself, and now we're working on the video. And sort of the impetus for doing this was she started a YouTube channel. Well, she's had one for a while, but she started putting more work into it recently. Which is very interesting because she's quite big on like TikTok and Instagram. Her short form content does really, really well. And she's kind of like discovering how different of a beast that YouTube is, and finding it like incredibly difficult to get any of her work seen. And it's also very different from any of her other stuff, like on TikTok and Instagram. It's a lot of videos of her making clay jewelry. And on her YouTube channel, she's more talking about her process and making vlogs about her own experience dropping out of university and starting her own small business. So I really got a lot out of her most recent video, which is called Uni Dropout Turned Business Owner, Wisdom I Learned from Dropping Out and Starting My Own Business. She's like a very positive and open person, and is making just like a very conscious effort to share, her own genuine experience. And I really think she is worth checking out, especially this video and especially the videos that we're going to make together. But yeah, she's like, it's crazy how that just like success doesn't really carry across platforms. Like, I don't know, she has like millions of views on TikTok and tens of thousands of followers and has struggling to break 200 subscribers on YouTube. It's just, she's discovering this different beast. So yeah, check out her channel. She's an awesome person. I hope to work with her more in the future. Sarah Giffin at Viv Jewelry.
Cool.
Adam?
Yeah, my Clampmendation this week. I actually haven't watched the video yet, so I'm going to throw myself under the bus there. I've been playing Rust a lot, like I've talked about in the past, and I went to get the link for my my video, and this popped up in my homepage on YouTube, and someone built the helicopter out of Rust, like in real life. I skipped through it. It looks really cool. So they've used all like salvage metal and everything, and like the helicopter in Rust is like literally scrap. Like it's a few poles and a blade on top. So I don't know if it worked or not or anything like that, but it looks cool, and I'm going to watch it when we finish this.
Nice.
Well, my recommendation is Make with Jake. He did this. The video is called "How I Engineered a Better Drill Press Vise." So he made a table for his drill press, and then realized it was garbage because the handles all hit on the table, and he couldn't adjust anything up and down. He couldn't lock anything in place at the end of it, and he just went, I failed this project, and released the video. And so this is the follow-up video to that. And the thing I really liked about it is he showed using a laser level to transfer bolt locations onto the wood that he's using, because he couldn't really measure it. It wasn't easy to measure because he's trying to mount something to underneath the table. So he used this laser level and pointed it at where the bolt was, and then was able to mark that on a board, and then drill a hole in the board there. And I just went, that is a genius thing, and boom, he got my recommendation. So what about you, Bob?
Cool. Well, mine is somebody I met at Workbench Con, and we spoke very briefly, so I don't really know her. She was really nice. Her name is Kelly Jean, and she is an artist, and she showed me some of her work on Instagram, and I haven't really looked at her whole Instagram until just now. I was trying to find the piece that she showed me. This piece is a geometric art piece on one wall, and then it's in a corner, and then on the opposite wall, there's a multicolor light panel. And as you change the color of the lights on one side, it changes the color of the painted pieces on the other side.
Oh.
And all the painted pieces are removable. And so you can swap this geometric thing around and then through the light change the color of it. It's really cool. I mean, it's got a great style to it, but it's also just really cool how it works. And so, yeah, I don't know if she's like a full-time artist or whatever, but
that's
cool
awesome
stuff. So yeah, go check her out. Kelly Jean.
All those links will be in the show notes and in the YouTube description for those watching us. At this point, we either do a Morley reading a review in a funny accent or Adam's Australian Word of the Week. And since we don't have a review this week, we're going to do the Australian Word of the Week. For Bob, who may not know, he's just going to give us a slang word, and we have to guess what it is.
It's multiple
really
choice?
difficult.
No, it's not. Okay. There's been some very
response.
fun ones. Yeah.
Oh,
All right, so this week's word of the week is hooroo.
Hooroo. I hear Dirk say that all the time, I'm sure, and I don't know what he's trying to say.
Cool. That's good. So you've heard it in context then?
Yeah, that sounds like see you later or cheers or something. I don't know.
Or like toodaloo.
Yeah.
What are we going to go with them? Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
It's literally bye.
Oh,
All right.
Literally goodbye.
My original guess was like a bad name for someone. Like, oh, you're being like a real hooroo right now. Like a Debbie Downer. But I'm glad that Grant guessed it right for all of us.
We've had some really fun ones.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. That was fun. Thanks to TF Turning for the theme song at the start and end of the podcast. And I want to thank Bob from coming on here and sharing with us. It was a lot of fun. Do you want to let everyone know the best places to find you?
Sure. On YouTube, if you just search I Like to Make Stuff, you'll run across us. And if you search I Like to Make Stuff on all the social networks, you'll find us there. So,
All right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, you can find the Clampcast on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, as well as Facebook and all the other ones, but we don't really go on there. And on that note, we'll be saying goodbye, and we're going into the after show.
Hooroo.
Goodbye.
See ya.